All right, so we got the 249 spoilers, and we've got an absolutely wild chapter here. So many crazy things going on, so much to talk about. So in the previous chapter, we saw that Sukuna was fighting Yuji, and he kind of had like this existential hedonistic crisis mid-fight, until at the end of the chapter, a Kotsu showed up and started going at Sukuna with Rika. And now we're finally coming back after the week break. But we're not picking up on that fight because the chapter actually begins with a flashback to when Yuta Kotsu chopped off Kenjaku's head. So this is great because we didn't get to see what happened after that. When Kenjaku was fighting against Takaba, during the end of that fight, when Kenjaku came out of Takaba's domain and he thought the fight was over, Kotsu showed up at the last second undetected by Kenjaku and he just took his freaking head off. And then we kind of just cut away from that. So now, thankfully, Gege is showing us what happened afterward. So as soon as Yuta beheads Kenjaku, the cursed spirits go out of control. So this is pretty cool because this is what Toji was questioning way back in season 2 and like the hidden inventory arc when he was going to kill Geto. He was like, if I kill you, are all your cursed spirits just gonna like come out and go berserk everywhere? So that's why he was hesitant of that. I don't know if that's necessarily what is happening here because Kenjaku technically isn't dead at this moment. He still is alive even though his head has been severed. But nonetheless, a bunch of cursed spirits are coming out. And Yuta makes Rika handle the rampaging cursed spirits. But then we see that Kenjaku's still alive and flying his severed head. He asked the Kogane to add the rule that Megumi Fushiguro will now have the authority to activate the merger between humans and Tengen. So yeah, this is how it happened. We saw in the previous chapter that this rule was made, but we just didn't know how because we assumed that Akotsu killed Kenjaku, but it was like happening while Sukuna was fighting against Yuji. So I guess it was happening at this moment in time. While Kenjaku was a severed head, he was flying off and he made the rule. Also, Kenjaku is doing some wild, like, Resident Evil type stuff here. He's like having this meat tree sprout out and holding up his head. And there's also like this sack thing that has something inside of it, which we'll talk about. I don't know if this is like Kenjaku's curse technique or how he's doing this, but it is pretty wild. It's kind of going above and beyond the call of normal jujitsu, I guess you could say. But Kenjaku tells Yuta that he had already created the backup plan and also finished the ritual of inheritance with Sukuna. We then see Tengen in the form of an embryo. Kenjaku sends it towards Sukuna, and Yuta finally pierces Kenjaku's head. So okay, this explains what had happened in the previous chapter, because after Sukuna had his deep inner monologue, suddenly this like cross of light appeared above him, and then we saw like this little cursed womb thing that looked like Tengen appear above him, and then the rule got made, you know, where Fushiguro has the authority to activate the merger between humans and Tengen, Fushiguro actually being Sukuna since he's inhabiting his body, and the Tengen embryo appeared above him and he grabbed it and then he like ate it. And he was like, oh, this is Kenjaku's backup plan. I guess Akotsu killed him. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creators with thousands of classes led by industry pros across film, illustration, design, painting, crafting, music, and beyond. This new year, you should invest in yourself and your goals by starting a learning journey on Skillshare to take your creative passion or project to the next level. But maybe you're not really sure where to start. Well, Skillshare has these great learning paths to help you go from novice to pro in no time. The learning paths are handpicked classes meant to be taken in order that build on one another. They reinforce lessons and are available in a range of experience levels from beginner to advanced. They include categories like design, productivity, creative freelance, tools and software like Procreate and Blender, marketing, and much more. The learning path that I personally chose was the self-care essentials, embrace and nurture the real you. First, you'll start with embrace, nurture, and grow your authentic self because, you know, you are worthwhile exactly as you are and you can decide to believe it. You can build your self-acceptance, communicate communication and self-respect skills. And yes, they are skills. And the first class is Revolutionary Self-Care by Chindera Egeru. Then after that, it's Rest, Refuel, and Recharge, because you can nurture your centered self with superstar Jonathan Van Ness in his self-care class that's all about loving and caring for you, the ultimate self-care playbook. Discover and nurture your centered self. Then for the last class in this learning path, you can explore the power of meditation, tune into yourself, and take action towards the life you've always wanted on this 10-day meditation journey with Justin Michael Williams in his Modern Meditation Discover Your Potential Power and Purpose class. So guys, if you're looking to better yourself this year and use a very valuable learning path from Skillshare, check the link in the description, because the first 500 people to use my link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thanks, guys. So yeah, this is what he did. He made this Resident Evil meat tree thing, and then Tengen's embryo was like inside of a sack in it, and then he shot it out at Sukuna. I don't know how he's doing this. Maybe it is like his innate technique, possibly. Maybe there's more to it than just brain hopping and taking over bodies. I don't know. At this point, maybe we'll never know. I don't really know what Gege's plan is for explaining things further at this point, at least deep cut stuff with these characters and Heian era stuff and how their nuanced abilities work. I'm just unsure. But also, Akotsu is straight up stabbing Kenjaku in the head, like in the forehead where the brain is. So I guess Kenjaku is dead. And I don't know, I don't think I'm alone in thinking that this is like unnecessary and kind of anticlimactic. I mean, Kenjaku of course has to die, but there's just so much more that had to be done and said. You know, it just feels anticlimactic. But anyway, Kenjaku's final words are, "I'm glad that the last person I played with was him," referring to Takaba. "But I won't say I've got 1,000 years worth of fun out of him. Now it's your turn." I guess he's talking about Sukuna. Back to the fight, Yuta notices that Sukuna's reverse curse technique output is returning to normal and that he might soon be able to use his domain expansion again. Yuta blames himself for the happenings. He laments that he should have joined the Sukuna raid team. But Yuta reassures himself that it was necessary for him to be the one to end Kenjaku, because if the cursed spirits had got released like Shibuya, then Rika's powers were absolutely necessary to stop them and save civilians. So that's a fair point, I guess. Even though the cursed spirits coming out were seemingly easily handled by Rika, but I don't know, it is what it is. Maybe he just released most of what he had for the Shibuya stuff or whatever else he was doing. And also, I guess that confirms that he doesn't have Michizane Sugawara, one of the 3 big vengeful cursed spirits who is like an ancestor of both Gojo and Akotsu, and it's like, did Gege just put that out there for no reason? Is he coming back still? Does anybody besides me care about Michizane Sugawara at this point? And yeah, this is also confirming that Sukuna just doesn't have an adequate enough amount of cursed energy, I guess, to use his domain expansion. Or maybe he's sustained too much brain damage and exhaustion in his fight against Gojo, which we thought was the case considering that he hasn't been using his domain expansion since then. And his reverse curse technique was slowed. We saw that in the fight against Higuruma and Yuji. But he is recovering slowly but surely. Yuta swings his sword, but Sukuna catches it easily. Yuta notices that Sukuna has grabbed the katana without actually touching it by wielding small slashes like a chainsaw. Yuta lets go of his katana and punches Sukuna's stomach where his other mouth was located. So yeah, Sukuna just bare hand grabbing Akotsu's sword as he swings it at him in a pretty cool sequence, but as it says here, he's not actually touching it because he's wielding small slashes like a chainsaw. I guess on his fingers he just has like small cleaver dismantles or whatever covering his fingers so that he can actually grab the blade. Like, that's just how much control Sukuna has over his curse technique. Yuta and Rika begin their dual attacks on Sukuna. Yuta blames himself again for the situation they are in. He wanted to finish Kenjaku with his own hands, which led to all this. Then Yuta opens his domain against Sukuna. True and mutual love. So this is wild. Akotsu finally using his domain expansion. So we were teased about this way back when Akotsu was in the Sendai colony taking on the Big Four. Well, at that moment he was fighting Ryu and Uro Takako. And they were going to do like a triple domain expansion, but Kuro Arushi, the cockroach curse spirit, came from the outside and broke it since the domain merging together 3 ways was so unstable. And we didn't get to see it. But now we're seeing it, and it's pretty cool. It's like this room where they're standing on like these crosses kind of, or like these broken pillars. And there's like tons of katanas in the ground. And I'll go more into what I think this is because it's going to be slightly explained, I suppose. But Sukuna uses Hollow Wicker Basket to counter the domain. But Yuta immediately hits Sukuna with Thin Icebreaker, which he had copied from Uro. So yeah, Sukuna using Hollow Wicker Basket, which is like the old version of Simple Domain, which I guess just protects you from the sure hit of the domain, I suppose, right? It's just, they're both like the same thing. Just one is like an old version. Like we saw Reggie use this against Megumi. And pretty cool here that Akotsu is using Thin Icebreaker, which is, as it says, Takako's ability, where she has like sky manipulation, as it was said, and she can kind of like break the surface of space like ice, and then it creates like this impact. We saw her use it against Akotsu, but obviously since he has the ability to copy abilities, he's using this against Sukuna here on his Wicker Basket. And I guess it works because it's not a sure hit of the domain. He's kind of just using a curse technique within it. Yuta affirms himself that he'll put an end to everything inside his domain. Sukuna's face is slightly hurt because he realizes their plan. He also knows who Yuta is from Megumi's memories. Sukuna calls Yuta the one with spirit possession, and his curse technique is copy. Okay, so I guess this confirms what Sukuna was talking about in the previous chapter, which we were kind of confused about, right? Because what he said, thinking to himself while he was fighting against Yuji was, which means the main dish is the possessed brat. And another translation is like the one with spirit possession. We're like, is he talking about Akotsu or Ino? Because Ino's auspicious beast could also fit that description, I suppose, and he had fought Ino previously. But no, he's talking about Akotsu. So Akotsu is the main dish, according to Sukuna. And his curse technique is simply being referred to as copy here. And that's kind of like selling it short because Akotsu's curse technique is like Rika herself. She's kind of like an external hard drive of cursed energy and curse techniques for him to be able to copy. So I guess just at base he can copy, and then Rika is just like the Shikigami that accompanies the ability. It's just one of the most broken curse techniques we've ever seen for sure. Yuta's plan is to keep using Sure Hit as a countermeasure, probably Angel's curse technique, while sealing half of Sukuna's arms and mouth by making Sukuna keep using Hollow Wicker Basket. Yuta can keep attacking Sukuna with unlimited copies of other curse techniques, which is possible only in the domain expansion. So that's wild. So first of all, Akotsu probably copied Angel's curse technique like when he was with her after she was recovering from getting bitten by Sukuna, during the 1 month break. And also his domain expansion ability is seemingly that he can use unlimited copies of other curse techniques that he's copied. And I guess that's what all the katanas represent. Like he picks up a katana and then it will be like an ability that he copied. But anyway, going further, Yuji will deal the finishing blow to Sukuna by using his ability to capture the soul with his strikes and rip apart Sukuna from Megumi's body. Sukuna mockingly applauds Yuji. He says, "Good for you, you've finally got a roll." Okay, so that's a crazy revelation. Yuji can manipulate the soul with his strikes. Clearly, he learned this over the 1 month skip with Tsukumo's soul diary that she conveniently was able to give to Choso before she was killed by Kenjaku. And this makes sense because when Yuji was hitting Sukuna, like for the first time after he had killed Kashimo, Sukuna was like, "Whoa, what's this? This feels different." And it's like Yuji was like reverberating Sukuna's freaking soul. And we assume that this kind of had to be the case. Like Yuji will be the one to save Megumi from Sukuna. I actually talked about this with a couple other creators. In my review, I'll try to plug in the sound clip of what exactly we were talking about. But also I'm going to have to go way more into this chapter into my full review once the chapter gets released. I think it'll be out Thursday morning. So guys, please subscribe if you haven't already. And also, please follow my TikTok or Instagram, whichever platform you prefer to use more. I upload TikToks and Reels all the time. I'm really trying to build those platforms to at least get 10,000 followers on either. So please follow me on TikTok or Instagram. I'd really appreciate it. I'll have the link tree in my description. But that's pretty much it, guys. Have a great one, and I'll see you in the next.